A regular woman denied boarding first class. Her powerful husband calls and gets everyone fired. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The terminal buzzed with the usual sounds of travel: overhead announcements, rolling suitcases, impatient footsteps, and half-hearted conversations. It was a typical Tuesday morning at JFK International Airport, but for Danielle Rivers it was the beginning of a well-deserved getaway. After a grueling 6 months managing a major charity gala that had raised millions for children's hospitals, she was finally taking a break. Her husband, Victor Rivers, had insisted she fly out a day early and enjoy the hotel spa before he joined her the next morning in Dubai. Dressed in a cozy cashmere cardigan over a sleek black jumpsuit, Danielle didn't turn heads. She never cared to. She preferred comfort over glam, subtlety over spectacle. Her dark curls were pulled into a low bun, and her only jewelry was her wedding ring, a delicate diamond bracelet, and small gold hoops. She moved through the airport quietly, with the confident ease of someone who'd flown more times than she could count. She approached the first-class boarding lane, ticket and ID in hand, and gave a polite smile to the gate agent. The woman behind the counter, Marilyn, her name tag read, barely glanced up. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-featured with a tight bun, and an expression that looked permanently etched in condescension. She didn't return the smile. "Yes?" Marilyn asked, eyeing Danielle with a quick once-over. Danielle held out her phone. "Hi, just checking in. First class, Emirates flight to Dubai." Marilyn didn't reach for the phone. Instead, her eyes flicked down Danielle's outfit again. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "this lane is for first-class boarding only." Danielle blinked. "Yes, that's me." Marilyn's lips thinned. "Are you sure you're in the right place? First-class tickets are quite expensive." Danielle paused. She wasn't easily rattled, but the tone made her stiffen. "I'm aware. I booked the ticket myself." Marilyn took the phone with reluctance and tapped the screen. Her eyes scanned the name, Danielle Rivers. First class, Emirates flight EK 204. There it was, clear as day. Still, Marilyn hesitated. Do you have another form of ID? Sometimes these online confirmations can be misleading." Behind Danielle, a couple in business attire moved into line, looking irritated. Marilyn glanced past her, eager to move on. Danielle raised an eyebrow, calm but firm. "I showed you my ID. Is there an issue?" Another gate agent, a younger woman named Lena, leaned over to glance at the screen. Her eyes widened slightly at what she saw, then shifted nervously to Marilyn. But she said nothing. Marilyn handed the phone back, not bothering to hide the skepticism in her face. "Just wait to the side, please. I need to confirm something." Danielle stepped aside, annoyed but composed. She pulled out her phone and texted Victor at the gate. "Weird delay. Agent acting strange. We'll keep you posted." Victor responded almost immediately. "What's going on? Want me to call someone?" Danielle hesitated before replying. "Let me try to handle it first. Just odd vibes." Marilyn was now whispering to Lena, pointing subtly in Danielle's direction. Danielle caught words like "doesn't match," "look at her," and maybe "economy." Her face remained still, but her pulse quickened. Not from embarrassment, but from anger. She knew what this was. She was a black woman in a sea of mostly white travelers, dressed in comfortable, not flashy clothes, standing in a space some people didn't believe she belonged in. It wasn't the first time someone had assumed she didn't fit the part, but it never got easier. Another few minutes passed. Danielle stepped forward again. "Excuse me," she said coolly. "Has something been confirmed?" Marilyn looked up, all faux authority. "Ma'am, for the last time, I need you to step aside until we can verify your status." Danielle's jaw clenched. "My status has already been verified. My ticket is first class, my ID matches, and you've scanned it. Unless you have a valid reason to keep me from boarding, I expect to be treated like every other passenger in this line." A nearby man, mid-50s in a tailored blazer, whispered to his wife, "She's probably trying to sneak in." Danielle caught it. So did Lena, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Danielle's voice dropped to a lower, steady register. "Would you prefer I get someone on the phone who can clarify things for you?" Marilyn crossed her arms. "You can do whatever you'd like, but until we complete our protocol." Danielle had already dialed. Across the globe, Victor Rivers, billionaire tech mogul, founder of Phoenix Dynamics, and one of the most influential black entrepreneurs in the world, answered on the second ring. "Hey babe," he said. "They still giving you trouble?" Danielle didn't break eye contact with Marilyn. Put me on speaker with someone at Emirates HQ. Now. Victor's tone shifted instantly. Say less. Within 2 minutes, Danielle was on a three-way call with the head of Emirates North America and the airport director of JFK. Victor's voice came through the phone, colder now. Gentlemen, my wife has been detained at the gate despite having a verified first-class ticket. I need this resolved immediately. The airline executive's voice crackled through. We're extremely sorry, Mr. Rivers. I'll dispatch someone right now. Danielle hung up and looked at Marilyn, who was suddenly pale. I suggest you don't say another word, Danielle said, tucking her phone into her bag. Not unless it's an apology. Within minutes, 2 Emirates supervisors rushed to the gate, followed by the JFK terminal manager. They were red-faced, stumbling over themselves with apologies and questions. Marilyn began to stammer, trying to explain. I was just following protocol. She didn't look like, her name wasn't familiar. Stop. The manager cut her off sharply. You're dismissed from this position immediately. We'll be in contact. Danielle didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She gave Marilyn one last glance, not cruel, just piercing, and walked through the first-class gate as if she had always belonged there. Because she had, and now, finally, everyone in that terminal knew it too. Danielle settled into her first-class seat with the same grace she had carried throughout the entire humiliating ordeal. The Emirates staff had scrambled to make her feel comfortable after what happened at the gate, offering warm towels, fruit platters, extra champagne, apologies that kept coming like waves, but no amount of service could wipe away the sting of what had just occurred. She didn't want their fruit, or their flattery. What she wanted was for this kind of thing to stop happening. She glanced around the cabin. The other passengers, mostly older white men in suits, a few couples on what looked like honeymoons, kept stealing glances at her. Not in admiration, in curiosity, as if they were still trying to figure out how she ended up among them. Danielle turned her gaze to the window. She'd flown first class before, many times, but this flight felt different. The seat was plush, the space luxurious, but it couldn't quiet the tightness in her chest. She took a long breath, trying to shake it off. Not today, not on her way to what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation. Just then, Lena, the younger gate agent from earlier, entered the cabin, nervous but determined. She walked slowly down the aisle until she reached Danielle's seat. Mrs. Rivers? She said softly. Danielle turned. I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry about what happened back there. Lena shifted, twisting her hands together. It wasn't right. I wanted to speak up, but honestly, I was scared to cross Marilyn. She runs the gate like she owns the place. Danielle studied her for a moment. There was no falseness in her voice, no performance. I appreciate you coming here, Danielle replied. I know it's not easy to speak out in front of someone like that, but silence protects people like her. I know, Lena said, lowering her gaze, and I'm done being silent. Danielle nodded, offering the young woman a small, sincere smile. After Lena left, Danielle's phone buzzed again. A text from Victor. Update. Just got off the phone with Emirates HQ. Full internal investigation. They want to speak with you when you land. Also, Marilyn's employment has officially been terminated. Danielle didn't respond right away. She stared at the message, the satisfaction muted. Yes, it was justice. But it was also a reminder of the kind of power it took to get people to take her seriously. What if she hadn't been married to Victor Rivers? What if she had been just another black woman traveling alone, without access to CEOs and private lines? She already knew the answer. The flight took off, and Danielle reclined her seat, pulling out a journal from her tote bag. The leather was worn at the corners, the pages filled with years of reflections, sketches, and reminders of who she really was outside the noise. She began to write. Today reminded me of the quiet battles we fight just to be seen. I don't dress in designer brands. I don't flash wealth. I don't need to. My dignity doesn't live in my outfit. It lives in my presence. But still, they tried to strip it away. She paused, glancing at the passengers across the aisle. One of them, the older man who had made the "she's probably sneaking in" comment, was now watching her again. He quickly looked away when she caught him. Danielle returned to her journal. This wasn't just about a ticket. This was about assumption, prejudice. The silent codes people use to decide who belongs and who doesn't. But I know better. And today, so do they. By the 3rd hour of the flight, the tension had started to loosen its grip on her chest. The cabin had dimmed, the hum of the engine became a soft backdrop, and Danielle sipped herbal tea brought by a kind, apologetic steward. He treated her with respect, not the performative kind, but real attentive service. It helped. She stared out the window at the night sky, lost in the stars. She imagined Victor waiting for her in Dubai, standing in the hotel lobby, arms open and worried. He'd always been her defender, her biggest fan. But she hated needing his power just to be treated with basic respect. Back in New York, Victor was already making moves. In his Manhattan penthouse, he stood at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, voice calm but firm. "I want an internal memo sent to all partnering airlines. If any of my family is disrespected like that again, we pull sponsorship and marketing dollars immediately." On the other end, a senior Emirates executive replied nervously, "Yes, Mr. Rivers, absolutely. We're also working with a DEI team to reassess our gate staffing and sensitivity training." Victor wasn't impressed. Don't waste time with words. Change the culture. Or lose people like us permanently. When he hung up, he looked over at a framed photo on his shelf. Danielle, smiling in the sun, hair blowing wildly across her face. She had always been the center of his world. Victor had built Phoenix Dynamics from scratch, but it was Danielle who had kept him grounded. Her humility, her heart, her refusal to become arrogant, no matter how wealthy they became. And yet, people still saw her as just a regular woman. If only they knew. The captain's voice eventually came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our descent into Dubai shortly. Local time is 7:12 p.m. Weather is warm and clear." Danielle stretched, packed up her things, and prepared for landing. Her phone buzzed once more. A new text from Victor. "I've arranged for a car to meet you at the gate. Black Bentley, private driver. And baby, just know, I'm proud of how you handled it. But I'm not done yet." Danielle smiled to herself. Neither was she. The wheels touched down with a soft jolt, and the aircraft rolled to a gentle stop at the gate. The crew gave their polished farewell messages, but Danielle was barely listening. She sat quietly, waiting for the other first-class passengers to gather their designer luggage and shuffle out. As they exited, a few glanced at her, curious, respectful now perhaps. Word travels quickly on a plane. Maybe they'd heard whispers from the flight crew. Maybe they'd pieced it together. The woman they'd looked down on was connected to someone powerful, someone they would never dare disrespect. But it didn't matter. Their belated politeness didn't fix the wound they'd helped cause. Danielle waited until the last passenger left before she rose, adjusted the strap of her tote bag, and calmly exited the aircraft. As she stepped into the jet bridge, she saw him. Victor, leaning against a sleek silver column, arms crossed, suit perfectly tailored, face unreadable. Her pace quickened. "Hey," she said softly as she approached. Victor pulled her into his arms without a word, hugging her tightly. He didn't let go for a long moment, as if he could absorb the weight of the injustice through contact alone. "You okay?" he finally whispered. Danielle nodded, though the truth was more complicated. "I am now." He kissed her forehead. "Cars waiting outside. But before we leave, I need to show you something." They walked side by side through the terminal. Victor's stride was purposeful, his hand resting gently on the small of her back. People turned their heads. Some recognized him immediately. Victor Rivers, billionaire CEO, featured in Forbes, Wired, and Time. Others just sensed the energy of someone who didn't ask for attention but always got it. They passed through a private security door, down a quiet hallway, until they reached a small glass-walled meeting room. Inside were 4 Emirates executives, all standing when they entered. "Mr. and Mrs. Rivers," the man at the center said, nervously adjusting his tie. "Thank you for taking the time." Victor didn't shake his hand. Danielle remained still, unreadable. The man continued, "We want to begin by offering our deepest apologies. The behavior you experienced in New York was unacceptable. We have already terminated the employee responsible and suspended the staff who stood by. We're implementing a full cultural competency retraining across our international staff, not just the U.S. division." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "Because I'm someone's wife? Or because it was wrong, period?" The man faltered, caught off guard. "Because it was wrong, ma'am, completely. It should never have happened, regardless of who you are." Another executive stepped forward, a woman this time, older, with a composed face and a diplomatic voice. "We understand if words mean very little right now," she said, "which is why we've decided to launch an equity audit across all customer-facing departments. And we'd like to invite you, Mrs. Rivers, to serve as an advisor on that initiative. We want your voice, your experience." Danielle stared at her for a long moment, then at Victor, who gave her a small nod. "You want me to clean up your mess?" she asked plainly. "No," the woman replied. "We want to build something better, but we understand if you decline. That's your right." Danielle studied them a moment longer, then slowly nodded. "I'll think about it." She turned and walked out. Victor followed. Once outside, the humid Dubai air hit her skin. The sun was setting in a dramatic blaze of orange and pink, casting a golden glow over the luxury terminal. Just ahead, a black Bentley waited by the curb, engine purring, driver standing at attention with the door open. Danielle climbed in. The seats were buttery soft, the air perfumed with subtle sandalwood, but she didn't lean back. She stared ahead, thoughtful. Victor got in beside her. "They'll never forget this," he said quietly. "I'm not trying to be remembered," Danielle replied. "I'm trying to be respected." The car pulled away from the terminal, gliding down palm-lined roads toward their hotel. As the skyline of Dubai unfolded before them, glittering and grand, Danielle's phone buzzed again. This time, it was Lena, the gate agent from New York. "Mrs. Rivers, I know this might seem strange, but I just wanted to thank you. After you left, I reported everything officially. HR said they've launched a case. Marilyn's not just fired, she's under review for past incidents too. You gave me the courage to speak up. Thank you for standing your ground." Danielle smiled for the first time that day, not because justice had been served, but because seeds had been planted. "You changed something," Victor said, glancing at her phone screen. "Maybe," she said, "but it shouldn't take someone like you calling in favors to make people see my worth." "It won't always be this way," he said. "You made sure of that." They arrived at their resort shortly after, a sprawling luxury compound carved into the desert, with private villas and infinity pools that stretched into the horizon. Staff greeted them with respect, offering mint tea, cool towels, and warm words. As they entered their villa, Danielle stepped out onto the balcony. The view was endless. Quiet, peaceful. Victor came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I know you didn't want all the attention," he murmured, "but the way you carried yourself, Danielle, that's real power. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't need my name to make a scene. You just stood your ground, with dignity. That's something money can't buy." Danielle leaned into him. "I'm just tired," she whispered. He held her closer. "Then rest. I've got you." For now, she allowed herself the softness, the calm, but inside, she knew something had shifted. She had walked into that airport as just another woman. She would walk out of this experience as a force to be reckoned with. A week had passed since the incident. Dubai had offered a kind of healing Danielle hadn't known she needed. Days of warm sun, late-night talks with Victor by the infinity pool, and slow mornings where the world outside didn't matter. But it was never about just the moment at the airport. It was about something deeper, something she had carried her entire life. Danielle had been underestimated for as long as she could remember. In the grocery store, in meetings when she was still in marketing, even at school events as a mother, people saw her, sized her up, and decided she was just a woman. A pretty face, a man's +1, no title, no voice. But this time, it had been too public, too brazen. Being denied boarding, dismissed like a trespasser in a space she rightfully belonged. It didn't just sting, it cracked something open. Victor had offered to make it all go away, to donate to the airline's equity fund, to file a lawsuit, to buy a damn plane. But Danielle didn't want that. She wanted change that couldn't be bought, which was why now, sitting in her office back in New York, she stared at her laptop with renewed purpose. Not as someone reacting to a slight, but as someone building a legacy. On the screen was a clean, minimalistic logo, the Passenger Project. Beneath it, a simple tagline, "Every seat deserves respect." Danielle had spent the last few days working quietly, drafting her mission, reaching out to civil rights lawyers, talking to flight attendants, collecting stories from other women and travelers of color who had faced the same treatment. Most didn't have a powerful husband waiting at the other end of the flight. Most had just swallowed it and moved on. But not anymore. She clicked publish. The website went live. 10 minutes later, the first email landed in her inbox. Then another and another. Stories. Gratitude. A mother in Atlanta denied seating next to her disabled child. A black veteran in Texas bumped to coach despite his paid first-class seat. A Filipino grandmother who was forced to repack her bag on the floor while others breezed by. It was overwhelming. It was infuriating. But it was also empowering. Danielle didn't know what this would become. a movement, a nonprofit, maybe even policy change down the line. But she knew one thing: she wasn't invisible anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor. Just saw the site. You blow me away. Let me know how I can help. She smiled. Her husband had money, yes. Power. Connections. But what she had, what she was finally owning, was a voice. And a purpose. A knock on her office door interrupted the moment. It was her daughter, Aria, in her school uniform, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mom, what's the passenger project?" she asked, holding up her iPad. "You're on TikTok. Like, viral?" Danielle laughed softly, motioning her inside. "Come here." She pulled Aria onto her lap, and together they scrolled through the posts. Clips of news segments, people sharing their own experiences, even a stitched video of a college professor breaking down why Danielle's story was so important. "You did this?" Aria asked, eyes wide. "I guess I did," Danielle said. "But it's not about me. It's about people being treated like they matter, no matter what they look like or who they're with." Aria nodded slowly. "That's cool. I want to be like you when I grow up." Danielle kissed the top of her head, her heart swelling. "Then remember this," she whispered. "You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to know your worth." Later that week, Danielle received an invitation to speak at a travel equity summit hosted by a global coalition of airline regulators, not as Mrs. Victor Rivers, but as Danielle Thomas, founder, advocate, leader. She accepted. The event was held in Washington, D.C., and for the first time, Danielle stood behind a podium not as a support act, but as the keynote speaker. She looked out at the room, industry executives, media, airline employees, fellow travelers, and began. "I was denied a seat that I paid for, not because of policy, not because of error, but because someone looked at me and decided I didn't belong." Her voice was calm, even. That moment didn't break me, but it did remind me that for too many people, travel is a reminder of their place in a hierarchy they never asked to be part of. That ends now, not because I have influence, but because we all deserve to be seen. The room erupted in applause. Not polite, not performative, genuine. And as Danielle stepped off the stage, Victor was waiting in the wings. He didn't say anything. He just opened his arms. She walked into them, but this time she wasn't seeking shelter. She was returning from the storm she had weathered and reshaped. That night, in their hotel suite, they lay side by side on the bed, scrolling through the flood of news coverage. "You've got senators quoting you," Victor said, "and 3 major airlines issued public statements after your speech." Danielle smiled faintly. "Let them talk." Victor turned to her. "You're not just my wife anymore. You're becoming someone the world looks up to. I've never been more proud." She took his hand. "I've always been someone. I just needed the world to catch up." And with that, Danielle Thomas closed her laptop, leaned back into the soft hotel pillows, and finally allowed herself to exhale. She had been denied a seat once. Now, she was building a table, and everyone was going to know her name. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She raised awareness. In a world quick to judge, she reminded everyone that respect isn't earned through wealth or connections. It's a right. And when she walked away from that airport, she didn't just get justice. She built a movement. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire change, challenge injustice, and honor the everyday hero in all of us.